So the Samsung Galaxy S26 lineup is impressive, but in some ways, Samsung really blurred the lines between these models, making it tough to choose the right one. They all have the same processor, the same RAM, the same storage, and mostly the same features, but the base model is $400 cheaper and has been majorly upgraded this year. So should you save your money and still get the best processor, but in the smallest form? Or do you want to ball out and get the S26 Ultra with that new privacy screen and the huge camera array on the back? Well, after testing all three of these phones side by side extensively for the past 3 weeks, I wanted to unpack this and see for myself what the differences actually were. And trust me, the differences are not all obvious. There are some situations where the cheaper model is actually better. So let's start off with the obvious difference being the display. This display size, of course, is going to be the huge one, where the S26 Ultra is a 6.9-inch display. The S26 Plus is 6.7 inches, which is not that far behind. The S26 is 6.3 inches, which I'm sad that 6.3 inches is now considered a small phone. It's narrow for sure, and it does feel a lot lighter when you get used to the other ones, but I wish it was 6.1 inches. Still, nonetheless, it's nice, it's lightweight, it's comfortable in the hand because it is a more compact phone, which means if you have smaller pockets, it's going to be more pocketable. And like I said, you're still packing all the same power as the other phones, just in a smaller form factor that's a lot lighter. That said, I've really gotten used to the S26 Ultra. I think any phone that you use for at least 2 weeks, you're gonna get used to the size and it's not really going to seem like a gigantic phone except when you first switch to it. As far as the display quality goes, the S26 Ultra and the Plus both have Quad HD+, so a higher resolution display, whereas the S26 base model is Full HD, basically 1080p. And before you decide just based on that, Samsung doesn't even really think it's that important, in my opinion. So the reason I say that is because the S26 Plus and Ultra actually don't even have Quad HD enabled when you get it out of the box. It's a lower resolution because you get a better battery life with lower resolution. I think Samsung does that knowing that power users are going to go in, the pixel peepers will increase that resolution, but most people will just leave it at 1080p and get a longer battery life. Also, technically the S26 Plus has a better pixel density, being a slightly smaller display and the same resolution as the Ultra. The Ultra does have the anti-reflective display, and when I hold them side by side, you'll see the difference is more subtle than it was last year. Last year, the S25 Ultra had a more anti-reflective display than this year. This one's a little shinier, but still, it's a nice feature of the Ultra. The Ultra, though, the biggest feature, of course, is that privacy display. And of course, you could just slap on a privacy screen protector on any one of these, but this feature has some pretty major benefits only on the Ultra. The other phones don't even have this feature. And that is essentially, you can have it only work for certain apps, which is what I personally do. You can have it only show up during pins or password when you're typing in two-factor authentication codes. It can show up only for that, or it could only show up for notifications or some combination of those. So I don't leave this enabled all the time. I have it only set for the things that actually need to be hidden from other people, which there's no other phone in the industry that does anything like that right now. I think it is so impressive. Additionally, the screen protectors you get usually only work in one dimension. So if you rotate your phone, it'll work, but if you tilt it up and down, it doesn't work. Whereas the privacy display blocks at any off axis other than looking straight on. So a little bit more private than a lot of those screen protectors. All three of these phones are the same max brightness, 2600 nits, although if you have privacy screen enabled on the Ultra, it's going to be more washed out, less bright. You're just not using the same full display capability. They all have the same refresh rate from 1 all the way up to 120 hertz, very fast and very smooth. Looking at the bezels on all these, they're quite thin, a lot of the same design language, no significant difference there. And even looking around the phones, like Samsung really made them all match this year. So looking at the back, we no longer have the Ultra as like a very distinct different phone. They have a really, really similar design language, just the addition of 2 extra lenses or little bumps right there. We'll talk about those later on the Ultra. Samsung did hold back some features on the base model though, and this is one that you won't see unless you really dig into the spec sheets. And the base model only goes up to Bluetooth 5.4, while the others have Bluetooth 6.0. So most people probably won't really notice a difference, but if you're thinking about this is a long-term phone, maybe in 4 or 5 years, a lot of headphones might be getting a lot of better features with Bluetooth 6.0. Something that Samsung used to hold back in the base model, but no longer does, is ultra wideband, which means if you have a Samsung Galaxy tag or something else that you want to use precision locating, you can do that now with the base model as well as the other models. And something Samsung used to set aside for the Ultra was a titanium body, but this year it's aluminum. So the entire lineup is using the same exact materials. And something that is actually a bit better on the base model and the Plus compared to the Ultra is the thickness of it. So the Ultra now is a lot thicker. The camera bump sticks out a little further, mainly because they changed the telephoto lens. You have a bigger sensor now, which is great, and we'll talk about the cameras later, but they shifted kind of the order of things. So it used to, like, the light would go in, hit a prism, then sideways go through a lens and hit the sensor. Now they moved the lens. The lens is now in front of the prism, which means the phone sticks out a little bit further. You don't have a really wide module there, but it sticks out further, which means, especially because you have an S Pen on the Ultra, you're gonna get a lot of wobble with this. I have a case on here, which does help, but even with the case, it still wobbles a little bit, just because that does stick out so far, and it's all the way shifted over to one side. I mean, it kind of breezed over one thing there, but another benefit, obviously, of the Ultra is that S Pen. The S Pen this year is moved over to the side. I'm not really a big fan of where it is. I feel like I accidentally bump that all the time and have my S Pen barely sticking out, but still, S Pen, huge feature that you won't see on the base model or the Plus. Great if you want to draw handwritten notes, sign documents. That's what I do quite often with that. It's just a nice feature to have. So taking a look at some photos, this right here is one I captured on the Ultra in Norway. It did an absolutely incredible job there, but I want to compare this specifically to the S26. I'll show those two photos side by side, mainly because the 26 base model and the Plus have the same exact cameras. So just to save how many photos you have to look at on screen, we're going to do the base model and the Ultra. Starting off with the primary rear lens, when you give them enough light, it's hard to see the differences initially, but if you look closely, you'll see the Ultra has a much larger aperture and therefore more of a bokeh, more of a blur in the background and more of a narrow focal plane. As you can see in these plants right here, same thing here, really similar color science on them. In broad daylight, you won't notice much of a difference except on the things in the background. Here you can see this very yellow forsythia looks almost identical on both of them, and if you get close enough to the subject, you are able to get that blurry background on the S26 just fine, but you do have to get very close to achieve that, and even then, it's not at the same level as the Ultra. Cropping into 2x, we start to see some of the benefits of the larger sensor for the Ultra, and again, that blurry background, looking at the trees way off in the distance here, but the biggest difference has to be when you zoom into 5x. This one is just not even close. If you're trying to take kind of portraity shots of either a person or an object, and like me, I personally love using the 5x zoom for this because you get basically no distortion, all the lines look really nice and straight, and you get that separation from the background, specifically with the Ultra, whereas the base model, keep in mind, this only has a primary lens, an ultra-wide, and a 3x zoom, but you really get none of that separation from the background on this lamppost on the left versus the right. And it's the kind of thing that, yeah, could you use a portrait mode and kind of achieve that? Yes, but it just looks so much better, in my opinion, on the Ultra. But if you're not taking photos of things close up and they're just far away, yeah, I mean, this is pretty much indistinguishable. I don't think anyone would notice a difference there until you get into 10x. And then you'll see significantly more detail preserved in the Ultra compared to the base model here, that kind of weird glow around the branches. Same thing here, although I have to really give it to it. The S26 did the best job I could ask it to for the sensor to really upscale this and make it look as good as it possibly could, despite not having that many details there. And when we zoom into 30x, it's just no contest here. The Ultra clearly has so many more details. Just look at the tire, for example. It shows no treads on the S26, kind of an AI-enhanced kind of a look to it on the S26 versus a more natural photo on the Ultra. And if you zoom into the max zoom, it maxes out at 30x on the S26 and 100x on the Ultra. You'll really never use either one at max zoom, but just for reference, if you crop in on the, to 100x essentially on both of them, you'll see how much more detail you get on the Ultra. We also, of course, have the ultra wide lens on both of them, and this one in broad daylight, I personally really don't see much of a difference at all. Similar color science, similar distortion, similar pretty much everything looks almost identical to me between these. The larger sensor on the Ultra also does a better job in low light, but like I kind of showed you here, if you don't care that much about the blurry backgrounds and you really don't care about the more peripheral use cases like low light or zooming way in, then yeah, there are many situations where these two can be indistinguishable. They have a really similar color science. Then, of course, we have the video. These both have the impressive new feature, which is horizon lock. As you can see right here on the base model S26, you're able to move it around, and it's still able to you can do a full 360 on this, and it still has that horizon lock, even though it has a smaller sensor than the S26 Ultra. And the videos are really going to be a similar story as we saw with the photos, where you're going to get more natural blur in the background, you're going to get better low light performance and things like that, but in broad daylight, in really easy environments, there probably won't be much of a difference in terms of colors between the two of these. And the front-facing lens, you can leave a comment and let me know which one you think looks better, but I don't really think it's a massive, massive difference between them, or at least not enough to be the deciding factor for me personally between these phones. Concluding that right there, the cameras on the base and the Plus are undeniably inferior cameras. The question really is going to be, where are you taking photos though? Is it going to be in bright light and easy situations, in which case they're all amazing, they do an excellent job, but you'll find the limits of these inferior camera sensors fairly quickly. Zooming in, portraits, blurry backgrounds, low light. I mean, yeah, without a doubt, the Ultra is going to be best for cameras, but not everyone needs to have the best photos in those fringe situations. Some people are like, yeah, you know what? I just take the photos of like my family and stuff like that, and I just like to look at them later. I'm not printing them out, I'm not blowing them up or anything. Just, you know, they're okay with the quality you're getting on the base model and the Plus, and in that case, the cameras are all really impressive. As far as the internals go, they're really similar across the board. They all have the Snapdragon Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy. In the US, it's not globally, unfortunately, not this year, but again, very powerful processor, and the same on the entire lineup. The base model, kind of a subtle difference here. When it comes to 5G, if you really care about like the fastest speeds, it only has sub-6 5G, not millimeter wave 5G. You can look up the difference in that, see what your carrier has, but the other two models have both bands of 5G. All have 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, or 512 gigs of storage, so that option to upgrade when you're buying it. And by the way, I'll have some exclusive links down below. Samsung gives influencers some exclusive promo links, so usually it's like an enhanced trade-in credit, sometimes free storage upgrades, sometimes like just an extra couple dollars towards accessories. Check out those links down below. They save you money, they help to support the channel. I appreciate it. And if you're gonna buy any one of these, just at least check it out through that link before buying somewhere else. But again, talking about the storage, the Ultra has one extra tier. You can go up to the 1 terabyte model, which also has 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's significantly more expensive. I don't personally do that whenever I'm buying phones, but some of the real power users that need that extra storage, that extra RAM, and if money's no option, yeah, absolutely go for it. As far as the battery goes, this is really quite interesting because you have bigger battery and bigger display and kind of this trade-off here. It's going to really depend on how you're using these phones. I did some battery testing, and first of all, the battery capacities on these, none of them are silicon carbon, so they're all the same battery chemistry. You've got 5,000 milliamp hours on the biggest one, on the Ultra that is, 4,900 on the Plus, and 4,300 milliamp hours on the base model. What does it actually translate to? Well, I did a battery test of just playing videos on here, max brightness, max resolution, volume was off on all of them, and I had basically the same battery life on all of them. The base model was just barely losing to the others, like it was always like 1% lower than the others, but really not a huge difference there. However, if you are doing something that's much more computationally intense, maybe exporting videos or gaming or something like that, something that's really using that chip a lot harder, then you could imagine they have the same chip on all of them. So if you're pulling in the same power to the chip, the bigger battery is going to last longer, and the Ultra is probably going to pull ahead there. But again, it's really going to be a spectrum depending on how you use it. I could imagine different battery tests could give you wildly different results on these. In general though, I think rule of thumb, they're going to be a similar enough battery life. The charging though is going to be different. You've got 25 watts wired charging on the base model, 45 on the Plus, and 60 watts, which was an upgraded charging on the Ultra this year. And the wireless charging is also a really similar spectrum, 15 watts on the base model, 20 watts on the Plus, and 25 watts on the Ultra. As far as price goes on these, like I said, a pretty big spectrum there. $899 on the base model, which is $400 cheaper than the Ultra. It's not cheap though, like Samsung definitely upgraded a lot of things here. More storage compared to last year. You've got the ultra wideband this year. You've got a lot of things that Samsung added to the base model that kind of justified the $100 price increase. I'm not really happy. I wish it was still $799, but nonetheless, I think Samsung at least changed enough on here that, okay, they boosted the price. The Plus then, honestly, I'm disappointed in the Plus this year. It's $1,099 and feels mostly unchanged from last year. It doesn't really have any major upgrades compared to the 25 Plus, and I don't know, I used to really like the middle model. I thought this was the one that most people should get, and this year I just don't know if that's the same. And the Ultra then is $1,299, the most expensive. And even among this class of phones, this is fairly expensive. But all three of these phones have the same software, the same features, All three of them support DeX. They all have 7 years of updates. And if cameras are not a priority for you, get the base model. Many users probably won't notice the resolution difference in the display, and the smaller, more compact phone is more pocketable, easier to use with one hand, and personally, I've always been a huge fan of the best tech in the smallest phone. The real setback on this one is going to be the lack of a good periscope lens that lets you zoom in really far. Also, the main sensor, although it's good, doesn't have that huge sensor size, the big aperture that we see on the S26 Ultra that gives you more bokeh and better low light performance. But the computation makes up for it quite well. The S26 Plus, like I said, to me is mostly unchanged besides the price increase, and the Ultra, without a doubt, is going to be the best in the lineup if money is no object, specifically because that privacy display is just so cool. I love how that's just a really breakthrough feature in my opinion. And the sensors, the lenses on the back, the cameras, among the best in the industry. I'm doing a head-to-head comparison between this, the iPhone, the Pixel, and the OnePlus phone. If you guys want to see that video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm really excited for that camera comparison. I've already seen some of the photos, northern lights, landscapes. It's really interesting. So I'll see you guys in that video. Leave a comment and let me know which of these you like best. And again, if you want to pre-order or order, depending on when you're watching this video, I'll have a link in the description. It could save you a couple bucks and support the channel. All right. See you later.